Welcome to this new episode of The Disabled Life. The purpose of this podcast is to tell people how I live my life. The name I'm using on the podcast now is The Disabled Guy, because I felt that you needed to hear something as opposed to just my voice there. I'm a disabled male living in Florida with cerebral palsy. I'm here to tell you how I live my life and some of the volunteer work that I do and how I managed to do it with cerebral palsy. Without further ado, let's go into the episode. What I'm going to talk to you about today is something a lot different. I traveled a lot when I was a child, but that was an experience that I was very confused about. I'm going to tell you how it used to be when I was a child. I used to travel to a country by the name of Costa Rica. My mom is from Costa Rica, so we have family there. My dad used to work for an airline. I'm not going to say which airline it was because no, it's not necessary. So I used to walk on the plane with assistants. They used to put the wheelchair in the belly of the plane. So one time, for some reason, they forgot to take my wheelchair when I was on the way home. But let me tell you my experience when I was a kid, when I would travel to Costa Rica. Okay, they would have to separate me from my parents, which was scary as a child, even though a worker would stay there with me because where the customs was and the passport control was stairs, and they had to go there, which was common sense. I understood that, but still, oh God. So they would take me down, and my parents would take the passport, so it would get stamped. Okay. So then, someone would stay with me until my family came. 9 times out of 10, I would not remember what my family looked like. My uncles would look like. So they would call me a nickname, and of course, when I would hear that, the natural effect is to go and look around, and they would come and get me from the agent that was waiting with me, or whoever that person was. I don't remember what. But when I got older and we kept on going, then there was a situation where they got elevators, etc., so I wouldn't have to go through that again. But one thing we would do, since my dad was an employee of an airline, we would fly as what they call non-revs. A non-rev is a term that they use for an employee that's flying standby. But the problem with standby is you would run around the airport, get to the gate, and wait with the gate agent to see if there were 4 seats available. Oh God, okay. So we would end up having to go home sometimes and go on the next day or whatever. That was always stressful. Now fast forward to how it's done now. Now I don't walk into the plane. I get into something called an aisle chair. What that is a chair. No, not call it a chair. I'm sorry. Let me call it a hand cart with a seat and seat belts. So what they do is they bring this chair. Okay, I can transfer myself. So I get up and I sit down in this chair, and then they strap me down and they take this onto the plane because my wheelchair doesn't fit through the plane. The aisle chair is the width of a hand truck. So I have to fold my arms across my chest, and that's it. And I get on, and I get on. Then they move the armrest, and I transfer over. So But here comes the funny part. Before I get on the plane, I gotta go through security. So they don't put me through the metal detector because my wheelchair was set off the metal detector. So they come on and they pat me down. But what is frustrating to me is that I have to wait there because sometimes there's a bunch of there's a bunch of female TSA agents there, and they need and they always want to do a same-sex pat down. So it takes a while. But here comes the story. When I went to go to Maryland, when I went to go to Maryland, I got on the plane, everything was fine. So I had to say, so we got on, everything was okay. We flew, whatever. When we got off here in Miami, coming back from Maryland, it was interesting because everything was fine going there and at the airport service there. But here, and when I went to get off, it was something weird because this agent that came, it was a female agent. She brought the aisle chair. She was sitting there, standing next to me, and not doing anything. So I'm like, okay, what is going on? So I asked her, excuse me, ma'am, what are you waiting for? She goes, I'm waiting for somebody to help me transfer you into the aisle chair. I'm like, ma'am, if you would have asked me such question, can you get out of your wheelchair? I would have simply said yes, because I can transfer. I can self-transfer. For example, my family don't use accessible vehicles. Maybe big trucks I can get into, but accessible vehicles, no, I don't need. So to get into cars, trucks, whatever, I deal with it because I'm physically able to do it. So she opens the arm and allows me to transfer over it. But all this issue took so long that our bag was the last bag. They finally realized what was happening. So they brought us the bag and they told us the bag got an extra check because it was the last bag and we thought it was left. Okay, not a big deal. Not a big deal. We have nothing to hide. I don't care. But what I'm saying is that's crazy. That's crazy that we had to go through that. Let me tell you another story one time of when I went to Costa Rica the last time with my dad to visit my grandmother because she wasn't doing well and we thought that she was going to pass on. So I go to the airplane. I get on the airplane and the lady is the gate agent, not the gate agent, the assistant, the ATA assistant, I believe they call them. I'm not sure what they are. Is running past. Is in a hurry. She's running because we got a board. And I stop her and I see the aisle chairs and she keeps passing by them. And I said, okay. And I said, excuse me, you need one. I need one of those. So she stops and gets it. So I get on the plane, everything, no incident. I get on the plane, everything works out. Then, when we get to Costa Rica, I find out later, we get there, that the air crew is doing what they call in the industry a turn. What that means is that the plane is not going to stay in country. It's going to drop us off, pick up other people, and then turn around and come back. So the person that is supposed to go get me is taking so long, and these people are just, and all the crew is standing there waiting for this person. I realize that some airports in some countries don't have aisle chairs. I So I think out of the box and I asked a pilot or a flight attendant, do you by any chance have a aisle chair on board? They go, yes. I go pull it out and I transfer it in and you can get me off the plane. So they get me off. Okay, so they do this. They get me off the plane. They strap me in. My wheelchair is already waiting at the gangway. So they tell the person that is supposed to come get me off the plane that they're no longer necessary. But here comes the other part of the story, is that my dad and I have to run through the airport on our own. So we were like, where are the bags? Where is this? We're just wondering all this. This is all due to experiences that I have. So we get in the elevator and move and go down or up. I don't know where we went. And I asked a janitor, and he was cleaning the floor. I said, excuse me, in Spanish. I said, excuse me, where is the baggage claim? So he took us, he walked us over there, and then he asked a person, a worker, help these people, but they need their bags, okay? So we get out of there. So here comes another part of the funny story. I get a cold that day. 2 days before I leave, I'm like, oh God, that's terrible. So I'm like, oh God. So then, this was during the time of the swine flu. So they were really afraid of the swine flu in Costa Rica. And I'm like, oh God. So then, we go to this guy, like a customs person, is wearing a mask. Not just a mask, a respirator and gloves and whatever. So he comes in asking me screening questions. I'm like, so he says cough, cold, runny nose. No. I go through all those questions as quick as possible and say, get away from this, because I did have a cold, but I knew it was a cold. So I didn't want to get screened by nobody else. So we get out of there. Everything else is fine. But man, these experiences as disabled travelers can be difficult sometimes. It is not an easy experience to travel with. This podcast was a little longer than I wanted it to be because of the amount of backstory and stuff that I had to do. Traveling is fun, but it's also taxing. Another tip that I'm going to tell you is, if you decide to get a coffee or something else, if you're going to take your time and sip on it, make sure you get it after you go through TSA check, security, because they will ask you to throw it away before, as you get to security. Thanks to a friend of mine that used to work at TSA and told me about that. Because, why would you want to buy a Starbucks coffee that is so expensive and throw it away just because of a security checkpoint? I know why they do it. I don't like it. Okay, something else I forgot. Disabled people don't have to get out of the wheelchairs, of course. And we don't have to remove our shoes. What they do in those cases is they have a swab, a chemical swab they run it over our shoes, they run it over our wheelchair, whatever, and then they put it in this machine, and this machine is going to tell them what's on this wheelchair, which is nothing. But anyway, they have to go through all that. With that, thank you for listening, and I'll be back next week with another episode. Just for a little bit of a useless piece of information, this podcast is being recorded on Saturday morning when I normally record before then. So today I'm gonna sit here and edit and post for tomorrow, which I normally don't like to do. With that, thank you for listening, and you can also email me at the following email address. I'm going to put it here, and I'm also going to put it down in my show notes. ke4key@gmail.com with any questions, comments, etc. Please rate and subscribe in any platform that you may use. With that, thank you for listening, and I'll be back next week.